In this video, we're going to be talking about creating custom gradients in Canva. We'll cover a variety of tips and tricks, and all the topics and time codes are listed below. So let's jump right in. Let's start with the basics of making a gradient in Canva. So suppose you found a gradient on a website like UI Gradients. You're lucky enough to have all the hex codes available. So let's try and recreate this. Let's click on the first hex code and copy it. Let's pop back into Canva. When we click on our background, the little white box appears. Let's click on that and then go to add a new color. And then let's click on gradient. So here you see all the colors in your current gradient. We'll click on the first one and we'll paste the hex code that we copied from the website. Let's add yet another color. Go back to the website, copy gradient color 2 and paste the hex code. Let's add one more color. Go back, copy and paste. And within seconds, we've managed to replicate the gradient from this website. Now, if we go to our gradient, you'll also see that we can change the styles depending on the type of design you want to create. So I'd say within about 30 seconds, we've managed to create a beautiful custom gradient. If we want to create a shape with a gradient in it, let's try doing that. I'll open a new slide, I'll change the color back to white, and I'll go over to Elements and draw any shape. So let's say we have the square element that we want to fill with a gradient. We select our shape, go to the colors, and here we can either select the gradient we've just created or go and create a brand new gradient. Let's stick with the one that we just made. So keeping your shape selected, just click on the gradient and there you go. Again, if you click on the gradient color, you can change the styles once again. And if you want to experiment with a bunch of other shapes, so for example, if you want a triangle instead of a square, bring your shape in, select your original gradient, go to copy style, and then click on your triangle. See, you can test your gradient out on a variety of shapes this way. For tip number 3, let's see how we can add some transparency to our gradients. Go to a blank page. Let's just add any kind of image to this. And say we want a gradient with transparency overlaying this picture. So let's just grab this square gradient, bring it over here. Let's go over to colors. And what I'm going to do is I want the pink on the left side and the green on the right side. So let's just grab the pink over here and simply drag it. And then we can drag the orange as well. And we flip the gradient around. Now we can adjust it over the picture however we want. And say we don't really want the green-blue part to be visible. So let's go there. Let's click on the blue. And over here you'll find a transparency slider. So just simply slide it down to minimal transparency if you want. Let's select the orange and again. And you can use this method to add any kind of brand colors to your gradient. We can even add a little bit of text. So I'll just grab this default text that we have, add it over here and change the text color. And in this way, if you're making a presentation and you need to maintain the colors and the fonts, it's fairly easy. So let's try it again with another picture. We'll add this to our background and then just grab the gradient, press Shift, select your text as well and bring it over. And once again, in case you want to change the style of the gradient, let's go back, click on styles and say we want the focus to be on the center of the image instead of the edges, let's change the transparency of the pink. Let's bring it down. Increase the transparency of the orange. And then maximize the transparency of the blue. And that way only the center of your image is in focus. So these are a few quick tips to create and customize gradients, not just in case you're making a presentation, but for any kind of design in Canva. Now next, let's check out how we can add gradients to text. When it comes to text and gradients in Canva, there are a few limitations we have to work with. I'll show you a couple of ways in which we can add gradient to text. I'll add a text box to start with. Let's drag it and make it as big as possible. You can use any type of font that you prefer. Then let's go over to the gradient box we created, copy it and bring it back here. Let's layer it behind the text, and let's fill the entire slide up with this. Next, let's change the color of this text from black to white, and then go over to our transparency toolbar and take it down to about 50% or so, or maybe even 40%. Having done that, we need to download this slide as a PNG. So let's go over to Share, Download, select the PNG option, and then download it. Once the PNG is downloaded, let's open a new slide and simply drag and drop the PNG onto this slide, and it comes as a picture or an image. And this is where we need to use the background remover. So let's go to Edit Photo and click on Background Remover. And this is why we needed a good contrast between the background gradient and our text. We can crop this text down, and then let's take it over to some adjustment options and play around with the saturation and vibrance. So if we increase the vibrance and the saturation, it looks a little less washed out. And you can try a few other options to get the gradient in the exact visual that you'd like it to be in. I'll just duplicate our previous slide and delete the text that we had written. And then let's copy this gradient text that we've created and bring it back over to this one. Then let's go to Edit Photo once again. Let's go to FX Effects and click on Shadows and just give it a drop shadow. And we can decrease the intensity a little bit. And boom, we've got some beautiful gradient text on a gradient background ready for us. Of course, the drawback with this is that once your text is done and converted to a PNG, you can't edit it. So for our final tip, let's look at how we can create some editable text. So on a blank slide, go over to your elements and search for something called text frames. You'll find the alphabets in the form of frames, which you can use to write any word out. So I'll quickly drop some letters in. Once you've dropped all your frames in, select all of them and resize them so they fit your workspace properly. Go over to Position. Make sure they're all horizontally and vertically aligned. And then we can just group it. Then let's go over to the color box and simply click on the gradient we created. And we can also change the styles. This is another way you can create gradient text without having to export as PNG. However, if you notice, each frame fills the gradients separately, so it's not one continuous gradient running across. It still looks pretty nice though. So these were some quick tips you can use while designing with gradients in Canva. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave us a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.